I'm celebrating the nation's 250th birthday by revisiting its 200th, the Bicentennial, because Nebraska was unique in celebrating that bicentennial with a series of monumental sculptures installed at the various Interstate 80 rest stops across the state. My family traveled that interstate regularly during the past 50 years. My wife was actively involved in the state's art community. Nebraska's I-80 sculptures are the only permanent bicentennial celebration, and I wrote about two of them in my books. So this year seemed like a good time to revisit those pieces and produce my reactions to them. The Roscoe rest stop is closed for serious construction through the fall into the late fall. So I can't go out there and do some new video, and you'll just have to deal with the still shots from many years ago, and also then a reading from Keith County Journal, Kingbird's dedicated sculpture. There is a phenomenon in the state known as the quote controversial I-80 sculptures unquote. Now that the sculptures are up, of course, there is no controversy, and indeed the only controversy that ever really arose was generated by a few individuals who didn't think abstract sculpture was an appropriate way to celebrate the bicentennial. The newspapers bent over backwards to let these individuals have their say, and in doing so created a quote controversy unquote. That was obviously news in itself. The quote controversy unquote was fanned by the media until it forced the state legislature into an issue with public hearings at the sculpture sites. Public hearings by a legislative committee on a quote controversial unquote issue with testimony from every important person in that state, including the director of the Department of Roads and the president of the university system, as well as every local person of stature in the outstate community, is indeed big news. In the fields of biology and engineering, this scenario would be a positive, feed-forward set of events. The piece at Ogallala is called Up Over by Linda Howard. It is one of several in a 400-mile-long sculpture garden, and it was dedicated on July 4th, 1976, at the rest stop on the north side of Interstate 80 between Ogallala and Roscoe. The eastern kingbirds were in a small trees planted only a few years ago around the rest stop buildings. It was a recently fledged brood. I wondered at the time if anyone else noticed the birds or noticed that evidently only part of the clutch had successfully fledged. There are few things more gentle than a recently fledged eastern kingbird, just as there are few things less gentle than an adult western kingbird. The two fledglings flew very gently up over the crowd. The artist, Linda Howard, stood in front of the rest stop building with the photographer, Dan Laidley. Linda had long blonde hair and was wearing a knee-length skirt. Dan looked like a cowboy out of a Gene Autry movie, with ample but not too ample girth. Two state patrol officers, resplendent, stood in front of their cars, also resplendent, and smoked. One had a resplendent boot placed carefully on his front bumper, and when he moved it, there was a tiny mark on the bumper. The Lieutenant Governor, Gerald Whalen, arrived by helicopter and was met by the rest of the dignitaries and gave his speech in front of Up Over. Dan was standing in back of the piece, taking pictures. The sculpture itself is an arc of I-beams, and there is no way to look at it, no angle from which it does not fit exactly into, complementing and enhancing the dignity of the backdrop sandhills. Up Over is an abstract I-beam sculpture, and of course the artist was not about to explain to the crowd what the piece was supposed to mean, if anything. It's a flock of pelicans meeting a sandhills lake or a prairie marsh. It's pioneers on Windlass Hill out at Ash Hollow. It's a long-billed curlew. It's the historical adjustments that have led to the present standoff between people and nature in Keith County. Or it's a kingbird dealing with the Dedication Day crowd. Again, that reading was from Keith County Journal, published in 1978, the section titled Kingbird's Dedicated Sculpture. The book is still available as a paperback from the University of Nebraska Press. Thanks for watching. Up over.